there, welcome back to the Grow with Cara show. Today we continue our interview series with successful attorney marketers. We're taking a close look at what's working, what's not working so well, the specific steps these attorneys took to get to where they are. And remember, these are simple steps that you too can follow to get on a similar path to growth. Okay, let's get to it. Today, our special guest is attorney Seth Price. Seth is the founding partner and business backbone of Price Benowitz, a firm serving DC, Virginia, Maryland, and South Carolina, handling cases in personal injury, criminal defense, immigration, family law, estates and trusts, and more. He is also the founder of Blue Shark Digital, where he and his team help other firms grow using the same marketing techniques Seth used to grow his own successful business. He's someone I've admired for a long time. We're super excited to have him here today. Welcome, Seth. Thanks for joining us.
Great. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So Seth, you scaled your law firm from a couple attorneys to more than 40 attorneys in less than a decade. Tell us a little bit about your story. Why did you launch the firm?
Well, so look, I was part of the first dot-com bubble in the late 90s when James Publishing was on the scene. They were already an established player, right? So I was part of this group that tried to do what FindLaw and LegalZoom ended up doing, which was uslaw.com. I love the idea of connecting people with lawyers in their time of need. So a number of years later, when my buddy Dave Benowitz, we went to college together at UPenn, went to GW together, when we finally got together and he said, I want to practice, I didn't want to practice in the traditional sense. The business bug had caught me. I had seen people doing cool things in the business space. And so we divided and conquered from day one, where he was the chief legal officer and I was the chief marketing person and the chief operating person, everything other than what's needed in the courtroom. And so piece by piece, my secret sauce has always been digital marketing. Like I love it. And we all do what we love, right? You can make a buck doing a million different things. But for me, it was building websites, optimizing websites as local came along, optimizing your GMB, now Google Business Profiles. It was getting reviews. It was now LSAs. It was figuring out what's next. It's a puzzle. Google gives us this opportunity. How do we use it and leverage it? Built Price Benowitz, first criminal and PI, and then a bunch of other areas piece by piece. And now almost 250 law firms nationwide doing their websites and their SEO and their PPC. Again, what drives me is seeing, hey, this is the paradigm that we live in. This is our puzzle. And this is how we're going to connect the dots to make something out of nothing.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're going to get into all of that. Tell me, what's the firm's revenue growth been like over the years?
The firm, had the hockey stick growth when we started because it was like, wow, this is freaking awesome. We made the Inc. 5000. We had all of that and had the great, 3-digit growth over multi-year periods. As we become a mature firm in multiple 8 figures, you're looking at it much more strategically and looking at which levers you can do and which efficiencies. And frankly, over time, I'm worried about top line revenue, but as I get older and wiser, really focusing on profitability and making sure that we take as much home as we can.
Yeah, absolutely. So at this point, about what percentage of the firm's revenue are you spending on marketing and advertising?
Great question. It's funny, historically, we had been extremely low, probably lower than the industry average, just because it was home cooking.
Right.
So historically, I had it, in the high single digits. Over time, as Google's gotten more competitive, and again, as you mentioned in my intro, I have multiple different practice areas, so that PI, I see, I could spend less, but every dollar I put in, I know I get more, and that could be closer to 20% because I want to push that as hard as I can. Whereas things like criminal, it is back to those single digits because we have it dialed in so much, and our organic assets are so strong that it really, once you have those dominant positions in the non-PI space, you can do some incredible things without spending double-digit percentages.
Right. And since you are practicing in a broad variety of practice areas, I understand that, it's not always easy. You're not marketing all of those specialties in the exact same way. But in general,
Right.
How are you investing those marketing dollars? What marketing channels are you investing in? What's working best?
So great question. To me, as I said, digital is where I put the lion's share. We do other things, right? We have mailers we can send out. I've tried radio. I've done a bunch of different things. Yeah. But to me, for me personally, And I also started with criminal before I did PI. So like looking at the continuum of the B2C world. So everything we're talking about is B2C here, right? If we're talking about somebody who's doing international corporate tax, much of this doesn't apply. It's a different world. In fact, somebody said to me, it came to me on the Blue Shark side and said, I want to do SEO. I'm like, are you already a member of every dinner club you need to be? Do you have season tickets to ball games? Are you doing all the basic networking in the B2B sense? Are you doing a podcast? Yes. Okay, you've done all that. Then we can do some SEO. Great. But until you've done the fundamentals, I won't even take their money for SEO. So on the B2C side, criminal is the best. There's almost no TV radio on it in most markets, and nobody wants to talk about it. So that's like the ultimate use of digital marketing. PI, you're competing with TV and radio players, but there's still a bunch of people out there and it's high revenues. That's great. And as you move down, like trusted estates, it's B2C, but so many people go through financial advisors, divorce attorneys, that there's a lot of work that doesn't come through the web. So it's much less of a percentage, but more people are looking at it. Coming back to your question, what do I believe in? I believe in, first and foremost, digital marketing. Local has been the dominant factor. So you need a site that pops organically. Add to that your Google Business Profile with reviews, 1-2 combination, and that asset has been great. Google messes with it. Are they going to go from a 3-pack to a 4 or 5? Perhaps, but if you're doing things right, all those will follow suit. What we've seen on the paid side is that over the last couple of years, we've moved from PPC to, wow, Google's now selling us leads, calls, texts, or chats rather, actual leads. So LSAs have been a dominant player, and I see more and more money moving the traditional PPC route and moving into the LSA world.
Let's get into both of those, unpack that a little bit. So what are your top tips for local SEO? What can attorneys do now to help that area?
Well, I mean, look, as you know, I'm very passionate about it. I've spoken about this nationally. There are 4 fundamentals that I talk about on SEO generally, moving into local, right? So there's content and links. There's no argument that that's what moves the needle for SEO. There's other things beyond that. Your technical layout of your site, your schema, all that stuff. But once you have the basics done, adding high quality links and authoritative content, that 1-2 punch certainly moves the needle. Then you have a Google Business Profile. You have that already. Free. Everybody has it. Google keeps giving us different stuff. We can do posts. We can do different practice areas. We can do service areas. Whatever Google gives us, I can't tell you that each one's going to make you money, but it's free. It's just the labor to have it done. And when Google likes it, we want to like it. Have I been wrong about stuff? Like I went all in on Google Hangouts years ago. They tried to sort of be like the Facebook, Twitter, like home base for people to talk. And you know what? It didn't catch on except for marketers. So by the end, it was a bunch of marketers and talking inside of a private echo chamber. Yeah. And you know what? We bet wrong. But you know what? I'm glad I did. I'm glad I was there, because had it been right, off to the races.
Right.
So my feeling is if Google has a product, I want to be there. And so if you're talking about a do-it-yourselfer, look, you can build links on your own, as I did early on. You can have content on your own. You can play with the Google Business Profile, and God willing, get some freaking reviews, because those things are both conversion factors and ranking factors. So all of that stuff can be done sitting in your basement with almost no resources. And my feeling is do what you love. An example, one of my favorite success stories is not even a B2C story. It's a employment defense story. The Connecticut Employment blog, Dan Schwartz, I'm probably saying it wrong. He started a blog like 10, 15 years ago, and he's built an entire career with not even the thought of a link anywhere. But you know what? When you write something, the New York Times then cites to it, that's SEO. So he wrote such great content. He's such an amazing writer that he would. Now, you're doing auto accidents in a major market. Is that that same game plan going to work? Probably not. But if you're doing a niche thing and you want to be known for some sort of, let's say you're going to be the e-bike lawyer. Nobody else is doing that. I'm making this up, right? You can probably niche your way to that with high quality content and links that will follow, because every time that somebody does, CNN does a story on an e-bike accident, if you put yourself out there and say, I'm the e-bike expert, that's going to make you money. So lots of different ways to do it. But all of those things, whether you're niching or whether you're going up against the sort of juggernauts in your market, there's a strategy for each.
There's a strategy, absolutely. What about LSA? So the local service ads, what's your experience been? I've talked to attorneys lately that have, unfortunately kind of seen a dip in effectiveness. And then, it's a bit, they're seeing a bit of a roller coaster with the LSAs. Tell us about
Well,
your.
right, when it first started, it was a feeding frenzy. And now the question is not particularly, let's separate. There's PI and there's everything else.
Yeah.
In PI, it's clearly a powerful technique. The question is, can you get the money spent? And I get people who come to me and say, I'm not getting as much as I used to. I'm like, well, who's answering your phones after 5 o'clock? Oh, no, it goes to voicemail.
Yeah.
So like, there are things where Google's looking at responsiveness and saying, hey, this is not an A player. We're not sending there because Google wants to make money. If you make Google money and you get these, you're not challenging all of your things. Not that you can't challenge anything, but there's a school of thought, like keep buying from Google. If Google makes money, they'll give you more. If you don't make Google money, they'll make you less. That's true. Your referral sources, right? If somebody sends you a dud every time, you're less likely to pick up the phone quickly than when somebody who sends you good stuff. It's kind of natural. But I think you have to be careful outside of the PI space. You're dealing with LSA. I think you have to be careful. The fee for service, I call it, right? What is your price point? If you're doing low dollar, they can be magical. But if you're, for instance, doing higher dollar trusted estates, I've seen it being problematic because people clicking on an ad at the top who haven't really researched too much, other than maybe seeing the number of reviews you have, may not be the savviest buyer. And when you're doing a higher dollar product, you're looking for the savvier buyer, not for the person who's just clicking. And so what I have seen is that it's a mixed bag. Test it, but know that you better test it because for a lot of people it hasn't worked. For many people it does. And just knowing that it's not a free lunch, particularly outside of the plaintiff's practice.
Yep. Good point. What's your experience with PPC, Google ads, Facebook ads? Has it been effective for you, for the firm? And what's the quality of those leads been like?
Look, lots of stuff in this conversation, right? So PPC, historically great. Right now, getting tougher and tougher, particularly in top markets. I see places that used to be, doing PPC. If people are honest with themselves, you're looking at $4,000 to $6,000 a case directly from PPC. Again, they're protected markets with less competition. People might get them for $1,000 in those markets. Test. What's your threshold? If you'll take soft tissue cases, you may be able to make it work. If you're looking for, real trauma accidents, it may not get you there. There are areas that I've seen historically on paid search with SSDI. I generally discourage SEO for SSDI. I think you got to go paid search and lead gen. So it depends on the type of area of practice and what's out there and figuring out what works. But particularly in the PI space, the numbers have been insane. And the fee for service space, as it goes up, everybody's like, oh, I need to make more money. I'll try PP. I'll try it. And I've been burnt myself. I've lost money in tests. It's PPC works, but it's a drug, and you have to be very careful about how you use it. And you have to continuously. There are things that are hard to get attribution on. This should not be one of those. You're using CallRail or some other group. Is this coming? Is there? Can you say I can see a 3-to-1 return with PPC, which is not even nothing. That's very, very hard to do in a lot of markets. If you get that, theoretically, there's something more because in theory, somebody may call you from an ad, see your brand. I love being in the ads because I want to be in the ads at the top, the 3-pack, and then the organic below. I want it all. And I think if somebody sees you multiple times, that's great. But know that it is very, very easy to burn through a lot of money if you're not constantly testing. And that it is definitely a challenge and it's getting tougher by the day.
Exactly. And that really brings me to my next question, sort of reporting, making sure that you're getting the ROI on sort of each marketing channel. I like that a guiding principle of Blue Sharks is really sort of, you say lifting the confusion around search engine optimization, because there is a lot of confusion for attorneys still in this space. So, what advice do you have for attorneys who may be vetting agencies at this point, right? What to look out for, what to ask, what are the important questions?
Well, I think the first thing is, checking with, your colleagues to see who's had success, right? No guarantee that past success is indicative of future results. But, look, there are SEO agencies or agencies out there that pride themselves on not focusing on SEO. Or ones that say they do SEO, but don't create content or links, or somebody's selling them and sell you blog packages.
Hmm.
I mean, this is nonsense in old time. So to me, high quality content and authoritative links. I've always said, and I've created a Mendoza line if you're a baseball fan, right? The line below which you shouldn't be in the majors, unless you're doing 350 to 400,000 in gross revenue, not net profits, but gross revenue. You probably shouldn't be playing the SEO game quite yet, unless you have an independent source of income that you're building a firm, like you budget and say, I know I'm gonna get there and I'm okay with it. But I have found that self-funded firms, and most firms are, that that's the number. Below that, you need a website. You could do some paid search, for a couple $1,000s. You do a bunch of things, but that SEO takes time to percolate. You're building an asset as I see it, and that you are looking for the ability to have enough revenue to carry you through that period. I see that if people get to that, depend on the firm, anywhere from 9 months to 15 months, you're off to the races. But until you find yourself in that position, it can be frustrating. And this is what gets worse. So, and I would advise people, if you bet on the wrong horse and you go, and they're not building you content, they're not building you links, and you pay the money for a year, 15 months, you're still going to be nowhere. Surprisingly, if they don't do the work, it's not going to pay off. Again, there's an exception to everything, right? Sometimes they love you despite it, but in a competitive market, it just won't work. So it's a combination of, what should you look for? Like, it's not just about price, but what is needed. First, is this person capable of doing what you need? Do they know what they're doing first? And then secondly, are you giving them enough budget? Because let's say you went with the best organization in the world, but you didn't give them $2,000 for a competitive PM, it's not going to work. And so the biggest, I think, shift that I've seen in people's thinking is, if you asked me a few years ago, people would say, I'm going to do PI in this market, and I'm going to decide I'm going to spend a $5,000 package or a $7,000 package, and I hope that I get something from it. And what I'm seeing change is lawyers are getting more sophisticated, and they're like, in my market, I'm paying $2,000 per motor vehicle case. And before, they would say, I'm going to pay my SEO $5,000, and I'm going to get unlimited cases. But SEO has gotten so competitive that now the question is, okay, if SEO, and assuming SEO better than what you have today, an SEO company can drive 20 cases to you a month, theoretically, that's worth, and let's say you were getting 0 before, just to make the math easy, or you were doing 10 before. So this is bringing you 30 cases a month you wouldn't have otherwise. And that's worth $2,000. That's $60,000 worth of work to you that you could do. So people are starting going from like, oh, can I spend $5,000 a month to, you know what, I really should spend $16,000 a month, because there I've given them resources. I can build content, they can build authority. And now if that person then ends up generating an additional 30 cases a month, you're approximately, your ROI on that is insane. And so people are looking at it not like, what fee am I paying, but where can I see? Because before they could put, let's say, you get $5,000. Let's say, somebody's going to make 20% margin. Some people do more. Some people, let's say that means there's only $4,000 of expense going into your sausage making to do results for you. That if you gave somebody 4 times that, imagine what could be done with it. And so assume you're betting on the right horse, and that person is going to deliver value for the money you're putting in, knowing that if you give somebody $3,000 and then complain that you're not number 1 in Chicago for personal injury, it's not, and knowing that there are times that you don't have the budget, you can't go for Chicago. Maybe you're going to be the king of Evanston and own Evanston, because we haven't talked about on this, but the Google updates of just end of 2021 with the proximity update mean that even if you can't own an entire city, you can own a little piece of the pie, or a modest piece of the pie, or a couple modest pieces of pie, and put together a really nice business.
And something you alluded to earlier too, Seth, is, okay, so maybe your agency is generating leads for you and you're not converting those into clients. Sometimes it's important to take a look in the mirror. What is the follow-up process like? What is your intake? Right.
Look, this whole interview has been like sort of everything we talk about day to day here, right? Where are we allocating money? We're doing yes. You're 1,000% right. Look, hole in the bucket. I'll be introspective. Price Benno, it's my test kitchen for Blue Shark, right? I looked up my numbers weren't great at the end of last year going into this year. COVID wasn't great to us on PI in particular. We made some changes within PI. We focused on response time to get the phone to ring. Over time, we're going to break down, which you're always moving to the next level. How is each particular person you have performing? There's more depth, yes. So as an agency, you just get teed it up. It's one thing for us to make the phone to ring, but if the phones aren't being answered efficiently,
Right.
you may have, $1,000 MVAs, but if your team is punting on it and not answering or not answering well and not escalating and not engaging and not being empathetic and all those things, yes. So it is a 1-2 punch. It isn't just about making the phone ring, but when it's done. And the worst part, I went during COVID from a fully in-house departments to almost entirely. A couple people are in-house, but we are 90, 85% to 90% remote now, which means that you can't feel and touch it.
Yeah.
And yet it's one of the most important things that you do.
Right.
So again, we could have an entire show just talking about intake.
Right.
Yes, but your point is extremely well taken, that you can make more money by adding more media or just closing that hole in the bucket so that you actually monetize what you should.
Yeah, and that can be the lowest hanging fruit sometimes, right?
Absolutely, without doubt, but it isn't easy.
Yeah.
What you're saying, nothing is easy, but yes, it's the lowest hanging fruit. At the same time, it takes hard work and also humility, because if you polled 100 law firms from the best to the worst on intake, everybody, including myself, says, yeah, we get almost everything we want to get.
Yeah.
We have no effing idea.
Yeah.
Again, we do over time with data, but for those that are not digging deep, and there are firms more and more, I'd say that we're in a golden era where people are listening to experts like Gary Falkowitz and others saying, with this, and there's data you have with your technology, whether it's software or whether it's consulting groups that come in and help you, people are getting there, but it's 2 steps forward, 1 step back. Everything's great until your director decides to go to grad school or whatever. You know what I mean? Saying it's all great till it's not, or until somebody has issues. So the idea is building redundancy and knowing that it is an art and a science.
Let's talk about social media briefly. Is it a sizable lead contributor at this point?
So you had mentioned that earlier, so I'm glad you brought it back up. So historically, I put social media for the average single event PI firm as a tertiary task. We did it. We had National Daughters Day the other day. You could put a picture of people's daughters. It didn't make you a lot of money, didn't do a lot. And there were people who didn't sign up with Blue Shark because I was I'm not going to sell you a $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 social media package because I don't think you're going to get ROI. Put that into PPC, you're going to make more money, right? And so 2 things have happened. One, in the mass tort arena, anybody playing mass torts, paid social, huge, it's a must, because think about it. In areas where you don't know something is possible, you didn't know that being in the military and having hearing loss might be the result of defective earplugs. You needed something to push forward, right? That said, when you are in the single, everybody knows they need a lawyer if they've been arrested or they've been injured. There's no mystery to that. People are searching primarily forward. So the cost of and it's very hard to target. If you knew that everybody getting arrested with money was between the ages of 30 and 35, and they were, let's say housewives who were drinking too much and went for a drive in their minivan. I'm trying to be sarcastic. Please don't hate me for this nonsense. But the idea is, if you could target, great, because what socials allow you to do is target. Are there things that are coming to fruition? If you had invested in every geofence from the beginning of time until recently, you would have lost money. Is there something to it now? Yes, there are examples of people doing it well in very specific places, but fundamentals in my mind win out. So now, all of a sudden we have TikTok, we have Instagram Reels, we have now, YouTube Shorts. This is a new battlefield for market share there. And they're giving you a tremendous number of eyeballs. It's ADHD theater, and I have massive ADHD. I love TikTok. Yeah. It sits there, it shows me baseball, tennis, Hamilton. It shows whatever's in, and if I get bored of something, it knows that and brings me into something new. US Open's on, I got more tennis. That's gone. Judge is going for the home run. It knows me better than I know.
Right.
So those mechanisms, I can't tell you it's your road to riches. There are people who've done very, very well with national practices like immigration. Why would you not be on video? Because it's cheap. You get it out to a gazillion people and you do really well. But if you're doing like Albuquerque, criminal defense, are you going to find your road to riches through social? Probably not. Is it good, cheap branding? Absolutely. But you could spend a lot of money on branding. And there are a couple top players in the country whose brands people can name. Most people can't otherwise. So I have a modest amount of my budget for branding, but it is one that can't be tracked. And unless you jump over the fence where you become a name brand, is somebody going to remember you in their time of need, despite your ads all the time? So it's a big question. I love what we're seeing right now with video, so I take that into a different category. Yes, yes, yes. But the traditional National Redhead Day, all the stuff that you're doing for your firm, I always say don't spend a lot. You want to be there. You want to have a built-out profile for somebody who checks it. But is having some modest posting in your social feed really going to make you that much money? Generally, it has not been. I am now seeing a beacon of light with these cool video platforms. Still, for most of the single event players out there and B2C players, your first dollars, unless you have some sort of secret sauce where you have figured out the algorithm and you figured out how to do these things really well through a TikTok to an immigration firm, most people are doing better with the fundamentals, but there are exceptions. And we see people, they're out there like Law by Mike. We don't see verified numbers, but they're getting views. They're doing cool things. Is it there? But if it's not you and you hate being on camera and you're not going to do it and budget for it, it's not going to happen anyway. So great social, I'm a fan of, but the regurgitated, I'm delegating to my social person who's going to do Me Too content, I just don't see the ROI generally.
Yeah. So yes to authentic, genuine Instagram reels, short TikTok punchy videos, maybe no to the traditional, Merry Christmas.
But if you put, again, I'm cautionary because as great as it is, outside of a national practice like immigration or something like that, unless it pops, so history is written by the victor. If you go viral and everybody sees it, great. But if you're doing a Me Too dance routine and then TikTok in a few months, close it, is it going to be another where you like it, people see it, it's brand recognition, it's good for connecting for referrals. But if you put all those resources into LSAs, would you be better off? Answer both, yes. But I see it as emerging. I'm excited. I'm experimenting. It worked well for Blue Shark, which is a enclosed ecosystem where other lawyers and people like you probably see my dog Scout. And I've created a brand online because it's a repeat player B2B world.
Right.
In the B2C world where I can target. You see my ads because you're in my world,
right.
But or see my stuff. But for people who you're outwardly pushing, who know they need a lawyer, going to use search, you have to overcome that. And now you're competing with the Morgans and everybody else who have created brand. It is tough. If you love it, do it. But unless you get great at it, I think that it is still burgeoning and not quite there. At the same time, I want to be there when it's there, but the fundamentals should not be ignored.
Yeah. Good advice. Laying that foundation is critical. What about video sort of outside of social media? So answering common questions on your website using video, getting client testimonial videos.
All fundamentals. Yes. Love it. Over the years, my first ones way back in the day, they look like those proof of life hostage videos with a concrete wall in the background. We've gotten more sophisticated. I think it's a blend. Do you need a full-time videographer? Generally not for that. Get your FAQs, get your basics, put them in, make sure there's interactive on the website, because it's more time on the website, good SEO, ranking factor, time on site, awesome, time on page. But, and you want that. But now I see the need for these other pieces. And this is the irony that I have found, that the person who does high quality FAQ content is likely not the person who's going to help you pop on social. You need a 21-year-old with a ring light to help you pop on social.
Yeah.
You have a middle-aged guy with a giant camera and lights setting up to do your FAQs. I think at some point they may merge.
Yeah.
The iPhone and Droid technology is getting so good that you probably could do it with. We have a clip-on mic for my TikTok, stuff that I do, and it's getting closer and closer. So part of it is do it, but don't get all consumed. If you don't come up in the rankings, the video to convert somebody on your page isn't going to make a difference. So it is a piece of it. I don't want to poo-poo it. I don't want to poo-poo, like, all of it's good. Some people love the beautiful emotive videos that go on your homepage.
Yep.
God bless. It may not be a sales video. There are different schools of thought on it.
Yep.
Video is great. Don't ignore it, but you got to get the fundamentals done and then layer the video, both the FAQ video and then hopefully the social video over time. But know that if you're stiff and you're not going to buy into it and you don't love it, it's not going to happen. Just like the blogs, right?
Yep.
You want to do a blog. My partner does white collar crime, national, high dollar, wanted to be a thought leader. He created a blog, maybe 2 posts he ever did personally, right? So that, we could do it, but it's not gonna be his quality. We're gonna do a podcast. I think we did 3 episodes. If you don't like that, and that's not something you do where you'd say, you know what, instead of watching an hour of TikTok, I'm gonna go record something like talking to you today. If you don't do that, then it's just not gonna happen. Same with social. You don't love it, it won't happen. So yes, you should do it. Would it be good for the future? Yes. But the people doing really well, it's their jam and they're doing it, loving it.
Yeah, and you have to love it to be consistent with it, right? Because it's not
Correct.
posting 1 or 2 videos, it's not going to have any impact, right? You have to be consistent, day
And
over
you can, as I said, make money. Any blogging, old school, still can do it.
Yep.
FAQ videos. Jerry Oginski made an entire career. I don't think he has an office anymore.
Yeah.
Just gets people calling him for medical malpractice in New York because he has 3,000. That was last I looked. I'm sure it's a lot more videos. You do it. I know people that are killing it in immigration with TikTok. God bless. All of these are great. Dig deep on any of these and you'll make it.
Yep, a piece of the puzzle. Yeah. So Seth, we talked about a lot today, but before we wrap up, I always like to ask if a lawyer watching only has time to adopt maybe 1 or 2 of the marketing tips that you shared today, what would you recommend?
I'm going to answer what we just talked about. Do what you love if you're doing it yourself, because you'll do it. If you love link building and you're a crafty SOB and you're going to find ways to get those in, great. If you are an English major, you love to write and that's your passion, do that. And if you just love to see yourself on camera, dig deep on that. But if you try to leverage yourself to an area you don't love, it's not going to happen.
Yeah, great advice. Good stuff. Okay, Seth, thank you so much for sharing your experience with us today. It was a sincere pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Seth covered a lot today. Here are the primary digital marketing takeaways from our discussion. 1, SEO is a long game, but it can deliver big time. You have to allow 9 to 15 months for SEO to work. Its key components are quality content and backlinks, but if you have the right people pursuing it for you, the results can be exceptional. High organic rankings can become your #1 lead generator and a steady, reliable source. Number 2, PPC, on the other hand, is much more variable. Results can and will rise and fall and have been trending downward, especially for personal injury. For criminal defense, PPC is critical as digital is the primary lead source. Estate planning, far less so. Injury falls somewhere in the middle. Google's recent proximity update makes it possible for all specialties to target portions of cities, so you can try to dominate specific geographic areas. Number 3, LSAs are working for injury and sometimes other specialties. Local service ads are a must for injury lawyers and worth testing for the fee-for-service specialties, right? Especially if you're at the lower end of the pricing scale. But remember, you need to have 24/7 phone response because Google really rewards service providers with high conversion rates. And lastly, number 4, social videos are a growing marketing channel. Seth said he's seen many lawyers succeed with social media videos, but they're certainly not for everyone. As with every type of marketing, whether it's writing, speaking, networking, or filming, you need to enjoy creating videos so that you actually stick with it. Okay, good stuff today. Big thanks to Seth for sharing so much with us. And thank you all for joining. See you back here next week for another episode of the Grow with Cara Show. Take care. Bye-bye.